Hello friends, it is Millie with Millie's Vines and we are here on my patio today, which I probably don't share enough, but it is spring and it is not too hot here in Arizona, so I am going to be doing my video out here. But if you guys are new here, welcome. I am Millie from Millie's Vines and I make all things plant related. I am located in Arizona, so I live in a very desert-like environment, and my collection kind of does showcase that. So if you're new, feel free to subscribe below. I am so happy to have each and every one of you here. And in today's video, we are going to be repotting my new desert rose. This is a Adenium variety. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not totally sure, but it is a pretty little desert rose. And if you guys know anything about this plant, or if you don't, it's totally fine. I have learned a lot about it in the past 24 hours. These are super common for like a bonsai type of vibe in Arizona because the desert in its name alludes to the fact that they are from really arid climates. I think the Arabian Peninsula is what I heard. So these guys, if you're into bonsai but you're not necessarily into watering them once a day to 3 times a day in Arizona, this is your guy. They are definitely drought tolerant and they have tremendous blooms, which I'm super excited about. So I have learned a thing or two about this guy, and it is mainly in peat moss. You might not really be able to see that, but the mixture is not my favorite. And from what I've heard, it doesn't seem like this plant is super particular about the medium that it grows in. However, I just don't feel great about it, and I kind of want to start it off on a better track. From my research as well, I have heard that they do really good in terracotta because they do not want to have wet feet whatsoever at all. Couple things about the makeup of this plant. This guy at the bottom is called a caudex, I believe. There's a couple different ways to pronounce it, but that essentially is the bulb-like area of the base of this plant. These do grow and get more character over time, and it kind of depends on how you want to grow these, but some people are very focused on creating a bigger, wider, more shapely caudex, and that's something that I might get into as time progresses. But for right now, I want to learn more about pruning it and getting it to bloom, and then I will work on the caudex aspect. So this isn't really too much of a tutorial since it's my first time owning the plant and repotting it, but from what I've heard, you do have to be careful when it comes to pruning. They can be highly toxic and kind of aggravating to people, so most people use gloves when they're pruning this. If any of the sap gets on you, it sounds like it might not be the most fun process. And then another thing is when you're pruning this, you do want to make sure that you sterilize your equipment before and after, because it does sound like they have a lot of things in them that might upset other plants. So they're also very susceptible to stem rot and root rot. That maybe I'll make a video on once I'm a little bit more experienced, but overwatering is not going to be good for this plant. And if you do prune this plant back, I have heard that cinnamon is really good. So you would cut the plant and then put cinnamon right on the spot that you cut. For now though, we're just going to be repotting it and seeing how it grows from there. As I mentioned, I'm not super happy with the soil that it's in. Additionally, from what I've heard about this plant is they actually like to be in more shallow, wider pots. So I don't have the best option to pot it into. I think that this square pot though for my philodendron Spirit of Sancti, I think that this will be a good option because it is a little bit wider and it's not the deepest pot and it's terracotta. So I think that's what we're going to be working with today. For soil, since this is more of an arid plant, I have a couple options. I have this bonsai soil, which is a tropical blend. So it's more so for like a ficus that likes to have a lot of moisture. So I'm not sure how much I'll use of this, but it seems like it's clay, fine bark, and pumice, and then lava rock as well. So a lot of aeration in there. I do also have a bonsai soil just because I really don't want this thing to sit in water at all. This guy I got from a local nursery that does a lot of stuff with bonsai, and I think, let's see, this one has bark, rock, peat moss, and sand. I think that that will be a good mixture for this guy, so I might mix this one with a little bit of the tropical bonsai soil from the first bag. We will just see. I'm gonna kind of just go with my intuition here and we'll see how it works out. But In the future, I will be pruning this guy back. For now, I just want to repot it and kind of let it chill for a little bit. And I think we can go ahead and get into the repot. Oh my gosh, there's like so many birds out right now and it's so nice. There is a tree that's like right here, and hummingbirds are always in that tree around this time of year, and it's one of my favorite things ever. So, okay. Per usual with my repotting videos, I use a little piece of cheesecloth for the drainage holes. Could I have cleaned this terracotta planter a little bit better? Yeah, probably, but I really don't think it's that serious. Now we're gonna be mixing up my soil mixture. So to be honest, I really just wanna see what these blends are like, and then I'll determine what I wanna use from there. Okay, so this is the bonsai soil. This is like a potting mix. This doesn't seem super chunky, but it seems really, really light. So I might do like half and half for this guy. Maybe not. I'll probably do a little bit less of this mixture, but it seems really nice. I'm kind of excited to see this soil. I was going to get I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Akadama mixture, because I want to repot my ficus. But the more that I read about that, the more I realized that that might not be best for my ficus, because it seems like it's pretty rocky and sandy. I won't lie to you guys though, this bag smells like, it doesn't have a great smell. However, this mixture is really nice. This is kind of like what I was hoping for. It's like really, really rocky. So I think I'll do like 50% of these two soils together. It kind of smells like when you drive past a cow farm. This soil smells really strong. I really just want to make sure that this is like a pretty, not necessarily chunky mix, but I do want it to be kind of rocky and kind of sandy. From what I've heard, I feel like that would be a good mix. And I think this looks pretty good here. I just really don't want it to be stuck in the peat moss that it's currently in right now. All right, so we have our mixture mixed up. I probably don't have enough, but that is okay. And then we're gonna work on getting this out of the pot, which I'm not sure how easy that's gonna be. It doesn't appear to be root bound or anything, so I'm hoping it's not too bad. I also want to be careful not to break up the roots too much. I have watched quite a few videos on this plant, and I have seen some people come in and quite literally chop the roots back to the base of the caudex, and that is not something that I will be, that is not some, okay, we got some dogs here. That's not, I will not be participating in cutting all these roots back today because I think that that's going to be just a little too traumatizing for me as a newbie to this desert rose game. But I do want to take some of this peat moss mixture off because it's just not speaking to me. I'll probably fast forward through this part, but I'm going to carefully come in and try to take off some of this mixture. It's just like so peaty and so, I don't know, even right now it's like sitting in moisture, and sometimes that can be okay in a greenhouse situation, but I don't know how well that will fare long term. So I'm really carefully coming in and kind of pulling this off. I do know too with this plant, it's really important that you don't bury this too low. In my opinion, some of these roots could actually be cut off, and this probably could be potted a little bit farther down just to reveal more of this caudex, but I don't know. I'm like 48 hours into this journey, so I probably shouldn't be advising where this should be potted and where it shouldn't. So for the majority, I've gotten this pretty well cleaned off. I am not going to go crazy like I mentioned. Some people, I've seen videos where when they're focusing on the caudex growth, that they will literally come in and chop all of the roots off, and I just don't have the confidence to be doing all of that. So one thing that I would consider, but I'm probably not going to do today because I just got this plant and I don't want to shock it too much, I have heard that sometimes if you see these roots that are forming like potentially above where this could be potted, that you should snip these off. and then pot it lower. Like I personally think potentially this could be potted more like here, so you have more of the caudex exposed. That's just a personal preference. You don't have to. Obviously you can see that it looks a little bit different than like the bark-like texture up top. It would eventually harden off from what I've learned. I don't know if I'll do that today because I quite frankly am kind of nervous. I'll probably just be conservative today and leave it. Eventually these might form into like more tubular type little thick roots, and it might look actually kind of cool. So I'll probably pot it pretty similar to where it was potted before. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do necessarily, but today I'm just being conservative since this is my first desert rose that I'm working with. There is still a little bit of like a peat mixture in here, but I really just don't want to come in and do too much to this plant. It's just, there's so much moisture in here that I'm really happy that I'm doing this. Tapping it is helping a lot, but I think that's pretty good. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, most people prefer to grow these in terracotta, and then they also prefer to grow them in more shallow, wide pots because it helps support a wider caudex if the roots are able to grow horizontal rather than grow like down and deep. So I probably could pick a more shallow pot than this guy, but I don't have one and I would like to get this potted today. So I am now going to kind of see what I want to be the front of the tree. And I'm kind of liking this side. Yeah, I think this will be the front. And because I am always trying to do something different, I might have like this peak or this corner be the front of the pot. I think that would look super nice right here. Okay, I want to give you guys a better picture. So I think if like this is the front, it would look really nice. So I'll try to be mindful of that when I am potting it in. Now we are going to start adding in our mix. Where did my cheesecloth go? Why is she on the ground? I will try to share some of the channels that I saw on YouTube that made some pretty helpful videos on these desert rose repots that I have been watching. If you're anything like me, I now at this point in my plant game, I know when I don't know something about a plant that I need to go to someone who does. I love being like an experimental girly, but I don't know. At this point, I just love to learn from people who have already experienced owning the types of plants that I get. So the first thing I always do is come in and go on YouTube and watch like 6 hours worth of videos. So if you're like that, let me know in the comments. And then one thing I always do is I like kind of spread the soil out to the sides so you have a deeper spot to pot the plant in, and you've already built some like soil sidewalls around the base of the planter. And again, I'm being mindful. I want this to be the front of the pot, and this is going to be the front of the plant. And I think that this is good because I do want that caudex kind of above this line or right in line with it. I do not want to pot this too far. So I think this is good. And now we're just gonna start backfilling. And I feel like I just got, ow, there's like something spiky in here. Okay, maybe I will use a spoon because I just got stabbed by something. Trying to think of other facts that I have learned about this plant. So they definitely want at least 6 hours of direct sunlight. They do not fare well in temperatures below, I think, 55 degrees, and that's Fahrenheit. So kind of keep that in mind. A lot of people who grow this plant do bring it inside in the winter, just depending on the place that you live in. Since I'm in Arizona, I will not have that issue. Every once in a while, it does get below 50 degrees, but that's mainly in the winter and it's pretty rare. So that's something that I will be mindful of. The only thing I'm a little bit worried about is 6 hours of sunlight. I definitely get in Arizona, but the thing with the sunlight here is it is so intense and it's so hot, and it literally will be 120 degrees some days that I think that might be a little bit too much for it. So I will have to keep an eye on that in the summer months. but definitely the sunlight will be no issue for me. The thing that I'm gonna also keep an eye on is all of my plants out here, they have west exposure, kind of like southwest exposure, so it's really, really intense light. But I do have a shade cloth up that blocks the entirety of the like patio window out here. So I'm hoping that it still gets enough sunlight with that, because I think this is like a 50% shade cloth, and I hope that that's okay. I just know that usually when I have a plant that says that it can take full sun, in the summer months in Arizona, it does scorch. So I would say if you have a similar climate to me, don't necessarily assume that it can take the Arizona heat, because it is a heat unlike a lot of other environments. This is looking so cute. I don't know, I'll probably leave it like this for a few weeks, but part of me does want to put a top rock like dressing on it, kind of like this one that I have here. I think that would look so pretty and it would give it more of a bonsai effect. But for now, while I'm getting used to the plant, sometimes if you do like a top dressing on your plants and you're not necessarily 100% sure about or comfortable with the watering technique, sometimes it can retain a little bit too much moisture. So I feel like I just want to learn this plant a little bit more before I try to do something more aesthetic for it, if that makes sense. So I'm just trying to make sure that there's no gaps in the pot right now. I'm just using the backside of the spoon to come in and kind of press gently around the sides, ensuring that I've got dirt everywhere. I'm honestly just gonna rip that root off because it's kind of annoying me at this point. Should you rip it instead of cut it? Absolutely not. Okay, and then I like to move it all around just to make sure I'm not missing any spots. As I mentioned, this probably could have been potted. I probably could have left this more exposed, the caudex piece, but I'm kind of just going with how it was before in attempts to not shock it too much. And I also don't want to pack this too much. Now, one of the most important things that I learned about this plant is similar to a lot of cacti, you do not want to water it when you first repot it. So I am quite literally going to wait probably almost a week. I would say maybe like 5-ish days. If you water this plant when it's repotted, it just is too much and it will most likely rot. So please wait 4 to 5 days before doing so. I have found that that is detrimental to other people. The other thing that I have found, and let me move the camera view because I think we're pretty much done here. I'll show you guys kind of what we're working with. Now that we are done repotting it, we're gonna pretend like my workstation is clean, but we are done with the repot and I think it looks so nice. We have a dog that is upset next door, but we're just gonna keep going. My hands are an absolute mess as well, but I think it looks so happy in here. Eventually I might do a top dressing because I want this to have more of a bonsai look to it. And I probably will do a video of when I prune this down because I already have a good vision for the shape that I want. So a couple tips that I wanted to leave you guys with. I have a thorn in my hand. A couple tips that I want to leave you guys with is the desert rose variety. From what I have learned, likes to be kind of stressed out in order to bloom. If it feels too comfortable, most likely it will not. So the biggest things it's going to need to bloom is a good fertilizer. I've heard that they are big feeders. I will let you guys know what I use. I think that potassium is important in the mix, and I think that nitrogen is important. Don't quote me on that. I think that's correct. So big feeders, I probably will feed it at least monthly in the growing season, so spring and summer, potentially fall since I live in Arizona. Another thing that is important is pruning is really, really important for this plant. As with pruning anything, if you cut back a stem, usually what happens is that it at least grows 2 more offshoots and it grows closer to the base. So oftentimes this plant will get rather leggy and then start growing leaves. I have seen people be very aggressive with their pruning techniques on this. Some people would literally come in and cut this whole entire stem off to the base of the caudex and then let it just regrow completely. I'm not at that point yet again, but pruning is really, really important. The more branches that you have, the more branches that you have that can flower, and it makes for a prettier specimen overall. So keep that in mind as well. You definitely will need to prune with this. One other thing that was kind of specific that I learned is when you see buds on this plant, you do not want to water it, which is kind of counterintuitive to what I would have thought. But at that point, it's better to continue to stress the plant out so it blooms. And then the second that the flowers have been open, then you can give it a nice drink. It is typically a little bit more thirsty when it is in bloom, which is how most plants are. But I have heard from like 4 YouTubers now that you do not want to water it when you see the buds, only after it has opened up the flowers. I'm trying to think of other things that I learned that stood out to me. Don't water it after repotting. Usually most people are saying that they water this plant every like 10-ish days, but it's very drought tolerant. So if you forget about it, it is okay. But I think those are the biggest tips that I have right now. Obviously, when this is in bloom, I will be so excited. I do have a couple little guys that I'll show you guys right here. Maybe those will come to fruition. I am not sure, but I am so excited to have something that flowers and that is a little bit less maintenance than my bonsai, because those are quite a commitment come the summertime in Arizona. So let me know what you guys think. The only other thing that I've heard to pest and as far as pest go, I've heard that I think mealies can be an issue, particularly if the plant is not getting enough light. Mealies, historically speaking, do not like a lot of sun and they do not like a lot of heat. So if you have this plant growing in its ideal situation, which would be a lot of sun, you shouldn't really have a mealy issue. But I have heard that aphids are a little bit tricky, or not tricky with this plant, but aphids do gravitate towards this plant and usually things that bloom. So you might have to use a systemic or give them a good hose off, kind of something like that to get rid of those guys. But those are really the only two that I've heard people struggling with. So kind of just keep an eye on the plant. But from what I've heard, they're supposed to be really easy, really forgiving, and really just a fulfilling plant to own. So I am super excited, and hopefully this video was not too long, and hopefully you learned something in the process. But my next week's video, I think I'm going to repot my bonsai ficus, and that will be a journey in itself because I've never repotted an actual bonsai tree. But yeah, if that is of interest, then stay tuned for next week's video, and thank you guys so much for being here. Bye guys.